ballot in 2024? Do you think he deserves to be off the ballot in 2024? What do you think?
Well, I'll answer the question exactly as you asked it. As Secretary of State, my personal opinion doesn't matter. I want to follow the law, and we have a little bit of a conflict of laws right now. Last year, the Arizona Supreme Court told us that the provisions of Section 3 and Article 14 don't matter. And they said because there is no way to enforce it that's indicated in federal statute. Okay?
Right.
So the Arizona Supreme Court is saying that basically it doesn't matter. Right, that it doesn't matter if you were in an insurrection or any of that stuff.
You can still run.
Well, because their logic and reasoning is there's no way to enforce it. Well, if that's the case, then does a 20-year-old get to run for president in Arizona? There's a 35-year-old prohibition. Do I have to let a 20-year-old on the ballot? Does a non-natural-born citizen get to run for president in Arizona? Given the Arizona Supreme Court's logic, which is binding law today, anybody can run for president. Okay. It doesn't matter how old you are or whether or not you're even a citizen. Now, that having been said, we know there's this other thing called the Supremacy Clause that says that all of the constitutional stuff is going to outweigh what some state Supreme Court says. Bottom line is there's a lot of questions, and we've got a lot of folks who are paying close attention to this, and so we're going to get it right according to the law. But then comes the next step. We're going to get sued. Let's say I make a decision in direction A, pick what that is, we're going to get sued. And I make a decision in direction B, we're going to get sued. What I want to do is make sure that my office and the people in my office who are helping us lay this out are equipped to help me make the best decision possible so that that decision ultimately is binding. And here's why it matters to me. Why it matters to me isn't a political thing, it's a practical thing. I've got to run a presidential preference election in March, and I've got to certify the candidates for the ballot by December 14th. That's about 4 months away. That's tight in election timeline, okay? We've got to print millions of ballots across the state. We've got to make sure that we've got all of the logistics set up. We've got to establish all of the, the polling places and figure out all of this other stuff. This is a big, big deal for our 15 counties and the people who run our elections, the folks who I cheerlead for more than anybody else, more than any politicians or even my own political party. Those are the folks who are the backbone of our democracy. They've been lied against, they've been beaten up and threatened, they've been harassed across the country and here in Arizona. They deserve to have some certainty about what the work is that they're going to have to engage in. And so
you have to figure this out fast.
My big concern is, can we just figure this out fast? And it's like I told somebody else, there's going to be a legal fight brewing. Somebody needs to throw a punch and get this thing started so that we can get the courts to act. Because I have a feeling it's going to be 9 judges in Washington, D.C. that make this call.
Okay. Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes in studio. Gatos, the wise man, Steve Zinsmeister's in for Chad. Okay, so you're a Democrat. I know you're a fair guy. Known you for a while. You're a Democrat. You make the decision that Trump isn't on the ballot, you're going to get crushed, right?
Well,
that's going to be brutal.
If that's the decision that I have, faith in the people that are advising me to help make that decision, and we're including a lot of people in this decision-making process.
Even if it's the right decision and it's 100, you're going to get crushed.
It's going to go the other way, too. I leave them on the ballot. There's going to be plenty of people out there. I've already had a bunch of people call into the office and send me notes and say he's not qualified. You can't put him on the ballot. And I've got people saying that's not your call to make, or you need to leave him on. I mean, look, so this is an active conversation, and I think it's a really, really interesting moment in time. It's not the easiest thing, and I'm not asking for sympathy here when I say this. It's not the easiest thing in the world to be the decision maker. The decider, I think, is the title for that.
It's a tough, this is a tough one, yeah.
But it is really, really interesting to watch this conversation unfold among the folks who we are talking to, because there is a variety of opinions about how we should go through making the decision on how to make the decision.
Yeah.
So, I'm an attorney. This can get complicated. I get it. Some people are just like, yes, he's eligible. No, he's eligible. It's the thought process that goes into it that I want to be very careful and very judicious about.
And it's the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, Article 3, correct? It's the interpretation of it.
Well, that's where the disqualifier comes in. Okay. And so, I guess in layman's terms, yes, you could say that's where That's where the meat of it is, right? How do you read this thing? What do you look at? How do you compare what has happened in the world to this paragraph, right?
Okay.
You're comparing the facts to the law,
Okay.
right?
What we're going to do is you stick around for a couple minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So in studio, we have Arizona Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes. What we're discussing is very interesting. 14th Amendment. There are some secretaries of states around the country. Actually, we'll tell you where this whole thing started. Did it start on the debate stage by a Republican who said, you know what, Trump might not be eligible to be president? We're going to talk about that. The Secretary of State's going to stick around for the next few minutes. We'll pepper him on some more questions. So stick around on the Gatos and Chad show. All right, AZ Trim Light, everybody. I want to send you to aztrimlight.com. Why? Because they've got the greatest thing ever. They've got innovative, patented lighting system that, guess what? It is going to go on the trim of your home. So this is exterior lighting. It'll be professionally installed, and it'll be on your home or business. And really, it eliminates the hassle and worry of, hanging the Christmas lights ever again. So just go to aztrimlight.com. You tell them Gato sent you. They can come out to your house. They can give you an estimate. All you got to do is go to aztrimlight.com. You schedule your free estimate, and basically they'll show you their technology and how it's going to fit on the trim of your house. How you really can't see a bulb, you can't see a wire, but on the app on your phone at night when you push that app, guess what? The lights go on and your house looks incredible. So just go to aztrimlight.com. Tell them Gato sent you.
KTAR News Flash.
It's 3:16. I'm Becky Lynn, and here's what you need to know right now. You heard it live here on KTAR.
I heard an apology, and that's why I asked for mercy from the judge.
Clint Hickman with the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors tells the Mike Broomhead Show that is what he told a federal judge before the judge sentenced the man who pled guilty to making threats to Hickman and former Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich over the 2020 election. The judge imposed the maximum sentence of 2.5 years in prison. General Motors now responding after the company decided to close its Chandler Innovation Center. In a statement sent to KTAR, the automaker says employees working in our software-defined vehicle teams will remain in Arizona. Affected employees will have an opportunity to apply for open positions. A rare blue supermoon could play a role in an unfolding disaster as Hurricane Idalia takes aim at Florida's west coast. Is because a supermoon that can increase normal tides is expected tomorrow night, just as Idalia is expected to make landfall as a major hurricane. You're never more than 15 minutes away from today's top stories on Arizona's news station, KTAR News. And let's get a check on traffic now with Chuck Rowe, live in the Valley Chevy Dealers Traffic Center.
Thank you, Becky Lynn. Just got eyes on a new crash in the East Valley. We'll go to Scottsdale. The 101 southbound at Cactus, the HOV lane is blocked there. Not a big backup. It does slow as you approach the scene there. The northbound side, just a little bit of spectator interest as well. Other than that, the freeway's pretty typical slowing. The I-10 westbound as you come off of the 202 Red Mountain Freeway, it will stay slow out through the tunnel. 101 Price Freeway southbound, starting to get a little crowded there as you leave University down toward the US 60. There's also a brush fire burning out to the west of the valley, Tonopah, Buckeye area. I-10 south of the freeway between 411th Avenue and Wintersburg Road. So closest to the eastbound lanes there, and it looks like there's some smoke being put up from the fire because there is a little bit of slowing through there. 7th Avenue south of I-10, watch for a crash. There's a wreck in Tempe, southern at the 101 Price Freeway, and watch for a collision at Glendale Avenue east of 16th Street. This traffic report brought to you by your Valley Chevy dealers. It's the Labor Day sales event going on now at your Valley Chevy dealers. Shopping for a car, truck, crossover, or SUV? See your Valley Chevy dealer during the Labor Day sales event going on now, or visit valleychevy.com. I'm Chuck Rowe, KTAR News.
This is the Gatos and Chad Show.
All right, we're back on the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Pretty interesting discussion. We've got Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes in studio. So, Steve, before the show, you and I were talking about there was an op-ed out of the Washington Post, and it said secretaries of state might decide to keep Trump off the ballot. And we were looking at, 14th Amendment, Section 3, and it talks about insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution could lead you from being kind of disqualified.
Basically, they could leave Trump off the ballot because he participated in insurrection or involved other people as well. The Secretary of State is looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, there are two other factors that are important here.
Okay.
You got to read the whole thing.
Yes.
Which is what I tell people all the time about the Constitution. You have to have been an officer and have sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
Okay.
Those are preconditions.
So you're sworn in as an official of the United States, right?
to have been an official, right, of the United States of America in this case.
Okay.
And you have to have sworn an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution. Those little factors are in there as well. In my reading, which has been more than cursory over the last bit of time. So there's those things all have to apply. So you got to read the whole thing in context, and it's sweeping. It is a radical piece of the Constitution that covers everything. And I'm talking about from president to dog catcher. And that's one of the reasons why last year the Arizona Supreme Court brought up this as to Congressman Biggs and Gosar and former candidate that I ran against.
Okay.
Right. So we first kind of heard about this a week ago on the debate stage, the GOP debate. Governor Asa Hutchinson brings it up. That's a Republican bringing it up. I kind of thought on a basic level that you would get mostly pressured from Democrats to leave Trump off of the ballot. You said you've gotten a lot of calls to your office hoping that you'll leave him off the ballot. Who do you get the most pressure from?
Well, I haven't personally tracked who's making all the calls or what their party affiliation is. We've just got folks who are very interested in this contacting us. And it actually started a little bit before the debate. When the New York Times reported on a law review article that's out there, and you can download the law review article, talking specifically about this. There were two jurists, two law professors, very well respected. One of them, incidentally, was one of Stephen Richard's law professors at the University of Chicago.
Okay.
He speaks highly of him. And they lay out four main points in their law review article about why, I think one of them is why the 14th Amendment is still in effect, why it is self-executing, why it supersedes any potential defenses as against the First Amendment, for example, and then some other point. I don't remember all of it off the top of my head, but they make a pretty compelling argument, but they're not judges. And the interesting thing is these authors are founders of the Federalist Society, which, as you know, is a very conservative think tank. So all of this conversation, for the most part, has been happening on the political right, and it's been drumming up all kinds of interest towards our office and I'm sure other offices across the country.
So 14th Amendment, Article 3, we've got some Secretary of States around the country looking into this. Would that disqualify Trump from being on the ballot? So we're talking to Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes. Meat and potatoes right here. This is what I'm about, right? Mm-hmm. Real simple. Is there going to be a day where you decide yes or no, Trump is on the ballot after you look at the 14th Amendment, Article 3?
Maybe.
Is that you that's going to make the decision?
Maybe. And here's why. And I have to hedge on this because, number one, we don't know that it's a decision that I make.
All right.
For sure, right? A lot of the indicators are pointing towards that, but we have to have that definitive answer before I step out and say, yes, that's a decision that I
How do you
to
get
make.
the answer then?
Yeah, who gives you that?
Well, we're going to be we're talking to the lawyers in my office. We're talking to some other qualified counsel, I will say. I don't want to put any other statewide elected officials who run the Department of Law on the spot.
Right.
But we're taking this very, very seriously. And it is the process through which we figure out how the decision's going to get made. That's where we're at now. We haven't made any decisions. And that's not a cop-out. That's real. Right? We want to get this right. We want to get it right the first time.
Well, you have a date by which you have to get this out, correct?
By which I have to certify, yes. By which I have to say, here's who it is. So let's assume for the moment that this ends up in litigation,
all right,
which it's going to one way or another. And let's assume for the moment that I am a party of that litigation. All Somebody's either filing to the court to enjoin me or prevent me from putting Mr. Trump on the ballot, or somebody is getting an order to force me to put Mr. Trump on the ballot. One way or another, we're going to get sued. By December 14th, I've got to make a certification one direction or another. God forbid we don't have a determination from the courts by then, one way or another. because then I actually have to make that call, and I will make that call based on the best information that I've got up to that point. But we're not there yet. So is this a novel sort of a thing? Yeah, right? And it means a lot, and it's a really important decision. I'm not going to make it either lightly or quickly. I'm going to be as deliberative and judicious as possible, taking in all sides, and we'll see where it plays out. But I don't think anybody would want me to make sort of a snap judgment on this thing. That wouldn't be fair to our voters, right? On either side of the aisle, right? We want to follow the law. We want to follow the rules, and we don't always get the result that we want, right? If anybody has stood for that, it's me. Right? And you can remember well, after 2020, I didn't get the results I wanted.
No.
But for God's sakes, that's what the voters wanted. So God bless them. Off we go.
All right.
I got to do the same thing here. That's why I got elected to this spot.
All right. Arizona Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes in studio. Good to see you. Thanks for answering our questions. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
I appreciate it. And by the way, Clint Hickman says hello.
Good. Good man.
He is.
He's a good man. You've got a big job ahead of you. Woo! This is not going anywhere. Why don't we, Steve, we'll step aside. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what Fontes said. Let's talk about what the 14th Amendment, Article 3 is about. We had Barry Markson on. He kind of explained it. Could Donald Trump be left off the ballot?